Good afternoon and welcome back to another ironic introduction to another video. Today I'm doing a SIG level analysis for Ghost. I will put a qualifier here that Ghost's SIG level and how valuable it is highly dependent on how you play her. You can play her where you phase and you phase like 4 or 5 hits and you don't even hit them and you just back off, or you phase 3 hits or phase 1 hit. And the number of hits you phase is going to vastly affect the amount of power you're gaining between phasing and hitting the opponent. And it's going to have a massive, massive difference. For consistency, I've only used aggressive Winter Soldiers here. I've phased 2 hits between every single counter strike from Ghost in order to make sure that the amount of power gained per hit from Ghost is consistent, as well as just kind of map it out accordingly to kind of get a difference between how much that SIG level is actually relevant. For too long, didn't want to watch, as well as like using my notes in the description. Essentially at SIG 0, it is painful, it is very slow to get to SIG 2, to a special 2 for that big SP2 launch from Ghost. At SIG 1, it helps a bit, but you're definitely going to have to bait a special. At SIG 20, it only takes 9 hits to get to an SP2, assuming you're phasing 2 hits at the start of the fight and 2 hits between each. And then the next bump in power is at SIG 60, which is 8 hits. You're still going to have to bait specials. And then at SIG 120, it turns into a 6/7 hit, but you're still pushing them to an SP1 before you hit SP2 and are able to launch that big SP2 launch. So I mean, gonna need to be a little bit of like light striking, comma, maybe phase an extra hit here or there in order to be able to accommodate, so if you don't want to have to bait a special. At SIG 140, you barely push the opponent to an SP1 while you reach SP2. You hit SP2 as you're hitting them, so that's super important, because if you're running Wasp synergy, then you don't have to bait specials before you L2. And then if you're at SIG 160, it's the same as SIG 140, and then SIG 200 is that glory spot of reaching a special 2 consistently before the opponent reaches SP1. And again, mediums and lights, lower SIGs really make a big difference on SIG power gain. So here's the video evidence. This is SIG 0 Ghost. This is only medium hits. And you're going to see it's like a 60-second video here of just pain. You do get the most amount of damage per hit this way. So if you're really looking for a big hit, and you're not stacking Furies, etc., which is actually what you should be doing with Ghost. But if you're not stacking Furies and you're just looking for the max amount of hits, maybe the opponent is stun immune, and you're not able to go in for that parry heavy, this is the way to do it. You do end up getting pushed way far against the corner, just because you're really relying on that phase and that aggressive opponent, but you don't have to worry about phasing 2 hits. You can do some intercepting here because you don't have to worry about the power there as well. So that's a nice benefit, I guess. But you can see here that getting to an SP2, I believe that's the second SP1 I had to bait out. Just no power gain from phasing hits makes getting to that SP2 very painful, which isn't a big deal. You still get the utility from Ghost, but you definitely lose out on a lot. This is SIG 0 Ghost, but I do light attacks as well, so you lose the damage efficiency here per hit, but you gain power faster because you're constantly hitting into the opponent. So you're kind of, subtracting there. You're just really fishing for that big L2. Maybe it's a power shield, maybe it's a biohazard, and every time you phase you're getting a Fury for free, that kind of thing. But you can see here it is a lot more bearable, but you're still going to have to bait multiple specials before you actually reach your L2. This is actually going to be the third L1 from Winter Soldier, so the amount of power you're giving to the opponent is actually more, but you do reach L2, like time-wise, significantly faster. Now, this is the first power spike, and this is a reason why I think Ghost is generic Awakening Gem worthy, because just at SIG 1, this is just mediums you will see, the difference in power gain is just massive. Suddenly, you're just getting a trickle of power every hit, and yes, 2% and some change doesn't really sound like a lot, but when you're phasing 2 hits to every 1 hit you're hitting the opponent, it's actually like doubles the amount of power you gain, and that's assuming you're only phasing 2 hits. Some people do 3. I personally only ever recommend 2 or 1, but you can see here that it works really well. I bait the 1 special, and we went from getting to like 21 to 26 hits to a 9 hit L2. So 9 hits in and we L2. We only hit a bait 1 special, much, much better. And just like with Ghost, where she ends fights on L2s really, really easily, that is a massive difference if you're using her in content like Alliance Quest or Alliance War. Definitely very useful. This is Sig 20 Ghost here, and this is where Ghost Sig level analysis really comes into play, because Ghost is a champion where, yes, it's a linear relationship, but the difference in the amount of power gain you get per phased hit per Sig level is really small. Like, it's like 2.02% to 5% at Sig 200. And so Sig 20 makes it like 2.3% or something, or 2.2% or something. It's really, really low. So you're going to see that 20 Sigs into Ghost really doesn't have an impact. I mean, I think it took us 8,9 hits at Sig 1. And it's going to take us 9 hits here as well. We're still going to have to bait a special. It doesn't really speed up the process that much because like the quantity is so minute and minuscule. It might help out in the long run, but I really don't recommend investing only 20 signature stones into Ghost. This is Sig 40 Ghost, and you're going to see the same exact thing. So even though we're 40 signature stones in, I believe we are now at 2.3% per phased hit. That 0.3 just doesn't make a big enough difference between the Sig 1 and the Sig 40. So if you're trying to say, hey, I've got 46 for Ghost, don't even bother. Just save them. I'm not saying throw them on another champion yet. You know, you might decide you want to invest Ghost in Sigs and Ghost. Personally, I'm going to be Sig 200ing my 6-star Ghost because I just love the value that Sig 200 gives. But you're going to see here still 9 hits to get to that L2. Now, Sig 60, this is the first spot where we see a massive difference. And that massive difference is 1 hit, but 1 hit is a big deal. Because 1 hit is the difference between a passive AI and an aggressive AI. It's the difference between an extra L2 every fight. And I know that seems really, really minuscule, but just at 660, this is where I can feel the biggest difference. And because Ghost is a champion that taxis. Now, if you don't know what a taxi is, it's essentially a champion that you use in every fight to carry you through a lane. Because Ghost is a champion that taxis, that 1 hit every fight is very substantial. And in later content, when you're dropping 3 L2s, 1 hit turns into 3 hits, and I know it doesn't sound like the biggest of deals, but it really, really, really adds up when you're using her 12 fights a day in Alliance Quest, or, you know, 6 fights in Alliance War. So 66 stones, definitely worth the investment. It's hard for me to really push that unless you really know the value of Ghost. But again, I am an advocate for Sig 200 Ghost. So let me push to Sig 120 Sigs to really, really sell the next bit, because this is the next power spike you really see in Ghost. Like around Sig 60, you can feel a substantial amount of power gain. Like Sig 1, you have power gain, it feels good. At Sig 60, you can feel enough of a substantial amount of power gain where if you're phasing multiple hits, you can really, really feel like you're ramping to an L2 pretty quickly. And then at Sig 120 is the next time you really feel like there's a massive difference, and it takes a 8-hit L2 and turns it into a 6-hit. Now, technically, I could have SP2'd there, but I'm going to call it a 6,7 hit, because even if you have Wasp Synergy, you do want to tap Winter Soldier once real quick, and then L2. And then I'm going to show Sig 140, because just that like small amount makes the difference between if I threw light hits here. So like if I say I did medium, medium, medium for my first 3 hits, and then I did light, 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 it's enough to not push Winter Soldier to an L1. So if you're at Sig 140, you can get to a special 2 without pushing Winter Soldier to an L1, just with throwing light attacks, and then you can launch your L2, and it's really, really good for managing AI aggression. As soon as he's knocked down, he's probably going to launch his special. You know it's coming. You can phase it. That's incredibly important for champions like War Machine. If you're trying to phase War Machine's special, a really, really good way to bait it is to launch your L2 and then just wait. And then when he gets back up, because you knocked him down, he already has a bar of power, he's very likely to launch it. And understanding the AI aggression profile makes a big difference in how Ghost feels with this increased level of Sig. This is Sig 160, which is where my 6-star Ghost currently is. And really, again, like the difference between Sig 120 and 160 is really just consistency, because the AI isn't always this aggressive. A lot of times they're more passive. It can be very, very frustrating. That little bit from here just allows you to maybe phase 1 hit or hit into their block a little bit and not have to be as scared. Because here at any point in time, I could do like a 4-hit combo and push up to an L2 if I really, really wanted to be that aggressive to make that push. But even then, from SIG 120 to SIG 160, there's not like a massive or substantial difference between them. It's not until you hit SIG 200 specifically that you are consistently pushing an L2 before they hit an L1. And this is by far, I think, like the biggest power spike on Ghost for managing AI aggression. Now, L1, SIG 1, super, super important for Ghost when we're talking about just reaching special 2s very quickly. That's the biggest cut in the number of hits before you hit a special 2. But the reason SIG 200 is so powerful, I'm going to play it again here. The reason SIG 200 is so powerful for Ghost is because the opponent has not hit a special 1. And if you've played this game for a long time, you understand that the instant the opponent has a special 1, there is this AI tick, this trade in the profile where they will not hit into your face. They will back off, they dash back, they hold block, and you can't do this special 2 intercept. This very cheeky SP2 intercept. I don't have Wasp synergy here. You just hold block for that extra second, dash back, SP2. Because at SIG 200, it is incredibly consistent. They don't have a special 1 yet. The opponent has no reason not to hit into your block. So you hit that 2 bars of power, tap them once, hold block, dash back, SP2, and as long as there's nothing like oscillate or it's like a defensive champion, because a lot of the defensive champions will back off too, that's just part of their profile. As long as it's a regular defender, they will hit into you and you can get an L2 special off without Wasp synergy. And I just really can't stress how valuable that is. So for me, I realize I'm probably a little biased. It's tough to do a proper SIG level analysis on Ghost because so much of it has to do with the AI profile. All I can do is break down the hit counters, show you how often you have to bait specials, and really, really stress and emphasize that I think Ghost is worth 200 SIG stones. I really, really do. If you disagree, though, let me know in the comments. Tell me why you disagree. I imagine it's probably a different tech champion you say is worth the 6 stones more. But as always, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.